right, I believe I am now streaming. I'm just checking on some figures. Let's see, I'll get a little closer to the mic here. Hopefully that'll help. And excuse me, it's really late. It's late. It's 10 p.m. Pacific, a little after. Long day of work, and this is the soonest I was able to get to it. But I'm committed to Inktober, trying to improve. I had time during my lunch break at work to, hey Chrissy, I did a sketch. I lightboxed the sketch to get the basic structure that I want, and I'm going to try to do as much inking as I can within about an hour. I'm going to try to keep it limited to that hour just because, yeah, it's late. I don't expect a lot of people to be in the chat room, and I need to get to sleep at some point. But, oh, there are a few people here. Hello, Patrick, Carabear Comics, Mike Art, Richard Hawker, J. Andrew World. Dude, when do you sleep? Well, basically, as soon as I finish this, I'm calling it a night. Yeah. It's definitely a challenge this month to, keep up the full-time job, do Inktober every single day, and also stick with making the weekly Comic Tropes episode. It's a tremendous challenge, but I did it last year, so I had a pretty good idea of what kind of a marathon I was getting myself ready for. So yeah, doing it again this year. And there's a lot to enjoy about it, There's a lot to enjoy. The personal growth is satisfying. Chatting with all of you is satisfying. The finished artwork, just knowing that I finished it, not always happy with it, but having finished artwork is nice. So there's a lot of bonuses to this. Let's see, Ghost Dog is here, says Hellraiser is one of my favorites. Well, hopefully after I lay down some inks, this will start to take shape and it'll look okay. It definitely, I needed some reference to understand exactly how many pins and such were in this guy's head because yeah, I had to think that one through. I was like, wait a minute. How messed up is this guy? Pretty messed up. Not really a guy. He's something otherworldly. He has such sights to show you. I like the first Hellraiser quite a bit. I think that that's a fairly well-made movie. It's not my favorite style of horror, but I do think it's pretty well executed. The second and third one are okay, and after that it really just doesn't work for me. And I'm a big horror fan, but yeah, did not really care for anything after the third one. And even then, it's pretty touch and go. But anyway, seems you have such sights to show us tonight. Indeed, I do. Richard says he's watching with his grandson. Well, I'll behave. I'll be good with my language. I usually am on my show and my live stream. I have to admit, in real life, I like telling jokes, and that means some, I don't want to say like exactly off color, because that sounds like you're doing stuff that's like, racist or something. That's not funny to me. But I'll definitely try to push boundaries. I do. Maybe you get a small taste of that in my openings on Comic Tropes, that I like to just push the bounds of what's acceptable. Hello, Uncanny Kodiak. Hello, Josiah. Hello, Sigamigs. Hello, Mikey Jesus. Wow. You could have done a female Pinhead like the books. Yep, I could have, but last night I drew Storm, so didn't really feel like drawing another sort of leather-clad pretty lady 2 nights in a row. And anyway, like, I like classic horror movie villains. I did consider though, like drawing like there's a female Cenobite that has like her throat exposed. It's pretty creepy stuff. I thought about like some of the other Cenobites, but yeah, it was gonna be Pinhead. It just had to be tonight. I like to draw a few classic horror monsters or movie villains during Inktober, and with the word cruel, that was today's prompt. I just thought that that was a really good word for Pinhead. So here I'm drawing the Lament configuration sort of opened up. If you know the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And if not, well, you'll find out someday, I guess. Let's see. Any questions? Foof is here. Your stream made me interrupt an in-depth character analysis about minor character in one of the greatest story arcs in anime. Well, it's always there to go back to afterwards, right? Chrissy says you might want to rotate your face cam toward the desk more. We just see in your ear while you're drawing currently. All right, let me see what I can do here. Ready? Moving. Set so I'll be drawing. See, the trick is I've got like an intense light for the work, and I don't want to like quite wash myself out. Let me try that, and you guys can speak up if that doesn't work. Hopefully that works. Hello, Quinn, and anybody else that has joined that I haven't seen. Hello, Lawrence. In Ashton? Oh no, in Ashton. A couple of streams ago, you were asking about Russian comics. I was curious. The main original publisher here is Bubble. I think they've translated some stuff, so look it up. I will. I'd definitely be curious what kind of comics are popular in Russia. Thank you. Appreciate the advice. It's going to be a little tough to be animated and just talk because I'm pretty exhausted. I mean, it's the end of a long day right now. I'll do my best. I want to be a good host to all of you. Just as you can imagine, it's tiring by the end of the day after you've been working a full day of work and it's late at night. But we'll get there together. Whew. Anybody else draw anything today for Inktober that they're happy with, maybe? Let's see. Uncanny Kodiak says, I drew Elvis. Yep. Let's see. Uncanny Kodiak says that he liked viewing my ear hole when I'm drawing. Is that... Yeah, I guess you just mostly get this sort of a look. It's not great. Does your family watch your show? No. Well, not my... like sister or mother or father. My fiance and my mom-in-law are pretty good about watching my show. So sort of yes, sort of no. Or some yes, some no. Interesting question. Marcus says, for Cruel, I drew Gargamel. Oh, man, that is hilarious. Lawrence asks, who's my favorite movie slasher character to draw? Jason Voorhees. That's fun for me. There's a lot to do with light and shadows and just a character that amuses me. So, yeah, for me, it's Jason Voorhees. So somebody just said they drew Gargamel. Now, as a very young kid, I was a big fan of Smurfs. That was like the first thing I was kind of into as a kid. And I had a few Smurfs figurines and one Gargamel figurine, which was actually a little tricky to find. They didn't make as many of the villain. So when I saw it, I was really excited, and my parents were kind enough to get that for me. Fast forward a few months, and it was like the school had started, and for some reason, this is like grade school, by the way, like maybe like first grade, something like that. And I brought my Gargamel figure with me because I just was so proud of having this thing for some reason. And I was sort of showing it off during recess one day, and this girl came up and like snatched it out of my hand and was like, "This is stupid," and she threw it into the woods. I was like, "What?" And I went and looked, and I didn't see it, and I looked the next day and the rest of the week, and every once in a while for the rest of the school year I would wander into the woods hoping to find it, and I never ever did. So I was always pretty upset and was not a fan of that girl for the entire rest of my public school education. I was never interested in talking to her because, in my opinion, she'd just done something mean for no reason. I really didn't even know this girl. And I look back and I'm like, maybe there was a chance that that was like some sort of like reverse flirting or something. I don't know, but it pissed me off, and I never forgave it, really, I suppose. The tale of my missing Gargamel figurine. All right, a bunch of folks have actually joined here. I didn't catch everybody's name, but anyway, let's see. Voodoo Zombie says, "No tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering." Yep. Smurfs, a bunch of people liked some Smurfs. Ever read the French comic of the Smurfs by Peyo? Yeah, that was one of the first comics that I was like given was some Smurf translated comics. Don't remember off the top of my head who published those. I don't think it was Marvel or anything. Could have maybe been Harvey. It's hard to remember. They were just English translations published in like regular American comic book format, but I did have a few. And Peyo is a pretty good artist, actually. Like some really expressive, cool stuff in his Smurf comics. Very cute little creatures. Definitely the first cute little creatures that I encountered as a kid. So I guess in a way I've sort of always liked Smurfs, but I haven't bothered to see like the more recent modern movies or anything. I've never really seen that, but I liked it as a kid. That's all I can say. I liked it as a kid. Hello, Buona Beast. What else? She launched it where you could find it. You never had a chance. Yeah, maybe not. Voodoo Zombie says Vertigo Comics presents Smurfs versus Hellblazer. People are saying cruel. Yeah, like Gargamel's cruel, but that girl was kind of cruel too. I even remember her name, but I don't feel like it would be nice to potentially dox someone over this. It's not that important. I recovered just fine from not having my Gargamel action figure. Just annoyed me. I'm not sure. I might actually still have those Smurfs from my childhood now that I think of it, because I'm thinking, and I don't think I ever sold them. It wouldn't be a ton of figures, but it would be maybe a few dozen, maybe. I wonder where they are, because I'm pretty sure I still have them. Smurfs. There have been many knockoffs. None have quite captured what the Smurfs were, in my opinion. But maybe there's something more modern that does succeed them. I'm not sure. The first thing that I remember trying to succeed them on the American market were basically underwater Smurfs called Snorks, but they really weren't as good. Maybe I'm biased. Chris, have you considered picking a famous alien from movies or comics to draw for October? Yeah, I've definitely thought about that some. I'm not sure exactly what I would do yet, but definitely something I'm giving plenty of thought to. I wonder what character on DC would cross over with the Smurfs. I'm thinking the Atom, and he gets stuck Smurf size. That's Locked on Target show. Hey, that's a pretty fun idea. Yeah. Let's see what happens when the Atom meets the Smurfs. The only problem is that the Smurfs lived in medieval France, I want to say. Definitely somewhere in Europe. So it's in the past and in a different country. That's a potential barrier, but we can get past that. Shirley asks, who is my favorite Japanese graphic novel character? Give me a second to think about that. Let me look something up because you've got me thinking, Shirley. That's a really interesting question. It's probably from something Naoki Urasawa did. And I would say that, like, it's not necessarily, like, my overall favorite story, but I liked Kenji Endo from 20th Century Boys. He just was, like, so sort of average but responsible and kind and creative. He was a really wonderful person. So, I don't know. I think he's sort of one of my favorites and might be my absolute favorite. Tricky to answer, for sure, but I think that's who I choose. Snorks makes me think of pound puppies as well. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Gummy bears, yep. Anyone here knows Mexican slang? I might know a couple words, but I wouldn't say I know slang. I'm just sort of jumping around, working with technical pens. I don't know if this will end up being one of my best, because I don't have this planned out very well. I had, I had an idea in my head. I'm trying to just get there with mostly inking, not too much in terms of what I've done with a sketch or anything. So, haven't just I haven't had as much time to think about it and prepare. And the more you plan, the better chance you have at getting a drawing to look the way you want it. questions. Ever read the Hellraiser Dark Watch comics? No, I have not. That's interesting. Shirley says, gonna look into 20th Century Boys, still working on Bakuman and My Hero Academia. Yeah, 20th Century Boys is a long read. There are a lot of volumes to it, so that can take a while. Let's see. Anything else? If you had to fight a horror movie monster to the death, what would you fight? Oh. Well, I'd want to choose one that I feel like I've got a chance at beating. So, you know, I know it's probably a little crazy because, you know, obviously horror movie villains have pretty good track record at winning until they get to their final victim. But I feel like my best shot at surviving might be against somebody like Freddy Krueger, just because I think I could have a small chance at outwitting somebody like that or using my imagination in a more constructive, clever way than he does. It's all about like willpower and imagination with Freddy, as compared to if I went up against somebody like, you know, Jason Voorhees. I can't win a physical match against a guy like that. It would be all down to complete luck if I survived. Same with somebody like Michael Myers or the shark from Jaws. You know, I need... the only chance I'd have is outwitting somebody with my mind. I'd probably be able to survive a Saw movie, but I'd hate it because, you know, would I cut off my arm to survive? I guess so, but I wouldn't really enjoy that at all. I think I'd be willing to play by Jigsaw's rules just to survive, but I definitely not think it's fair, and I wouldn't really learn anything. So there's another one that I might survive. The Saw franchise. What? See, you said slashers, so I feel like I need to actually limit it. Like the shark from Jaws shouldn't even factor in, because that's not a slasher. What about Chucky? Oh, yeah. You know what? I'd probably stand a decent chance against Chucky because I could just sort of kick at him. Like, oh, you're just a little doll. The only way that Chucky's going to beat you is if he sneaks up on you, and as long as you're not totally stupid, he's probably not going to sneak up on you. So I'll go with Chucky after all. Final answer, Regis. Chucky. Final answer. Stop me if I've told this joke before. Clark Kent comes home from work. It's been a long day. Enters his kitchen, gets a glass of water, loosens his tie, takes off his glasses, rubs his eyes a little, sets his glasses on the kitchen table. Lois Lane walks in and says, "Is that our kitchen table? I don't recognize it." I'll wait for your response, which I can only assume is going to be prolonged, delighted laughter. Oh, two people typed haha, and one person gave me that's a good one. So, you know, obviously when you tell a joke, you're hoping for a ha ha ha, but you settle for a Quinn says, who would win, the Leprechaun or Chucky? Well, Chucky has the better movies, and he's definitely smarter. But oh good, thank you, Sanity. Leprechaun just keeps coming back. Well, you know what? So does Chucky. I'm going to give it to Chucky. Leprechaun can use his magic. He might get a temporary win, but eventually Chucky's gonna, like, you know, get reborn, and he's going to learn from his past mistakes, and he's going to get the drop on the Leprechaun. He'll do something like vindictive, like, you know, throw him down a pit and just let him suffer instead of, like, killing him. Something like that. Emmanuel E says, love Jennifer Tilly's voice. Chris tells dad jokes. Of course I do. Yeah, I'm a cat dad. Let's see. What's tomorrow's prompt? I'm not sure. Great question. Don't know off the top of my head. I will try to remember to look before I sign off, because I am curious. Yeah, intentionally not planning ahead. Don't want to sort of... I want to play by the rules, which is basically, you know, come up with it the day of. Don't have too much time to prepare or anything. Keep it loose. Keep it fun. Yeah, so... Don't know yet. What is tomorrow's prompt? Anybody do anything totally unique, awesome lately? Speak up. Travel anywhere? Do something brand new, like jump out of a plane with a parachute? Jump out of a plane without a parachute? Hello, Javon. Let's see. Oh, tomorrow's prompt is whale. That's a bit literal. Hey, Chris, have you used the word wicked unironically before? Oh, yeah, I used to use it all the time. All the time. When I went to college, that got a little drilled out of me because my friends would just be like, wicked, as soon as I said it. And, like, I just realized how often I said it. But I was from Massachusetts, and we absolutely used the word wicked there all the time. But because it kept getting commented on, it did get drilled out of me a bit. I don't really, by default, say that word anymore. It doesn't because of that time, like in college, you know. But for a long time, I used it unironically. Just means very. Just be like, ah, yeah, I'm having a wicked good time. Or, that was a wicked bad movie. You just drop it in for, like, any sort of emphasis you needed. Instead of, like, the F word, basically, you just say, wicked. Ah, dude, that's wicked. That's wicked pissa. Interesting question. Can you do a Boston accent, or is it like your Australian accent? Nah, I can do a Boston accent, but it's fairly subtle, I would say. You might just sort of drop in say it's wicked pissa. Are you having a good time? You gonna go into Boston later? Maybe pick up some beers. You know, I'm gonna get on the turnpike and bang a Yui. It's about that. It's not too much. It's pretty much my same voice. That is so good. Well, it should be. I mean, that's where I'm from. What is wicked pissa? It just means cool. Ah, that's a wicked pissa. dude. Nah, dude. You gotta go. It's the Sox are playing. It's gonna be wicked pissa. Anyway, that's great. I tell a good Superman joke, gets a few ha-has. I talk in a Boston accent, people are like, whoa! Oh my god! He did it! He did it! Yeah, Pinhead's a hard character to make look good now that I'm doing this. Like, you need to just cover up some of these lines with shadow. So I'm just sort of figuring this out while I go along. But that's why I thought it would be a good challenge for Inktober also is, you know, he wears leather, he's got a white face that's always bathed in shadow, and he's got pins sticking out at like what kind of angles would I say they are? They're like they're at least symmetrical for them. You know, they're not like at angles. They're like, you know, vertical and horizontal, and then sticking right out. So yeah, I don't know if we have any unique slang where I live. Where's that, Care Bear? Comics. Let's see. Oh, interesting. Uncanny Kodiak met a retired military man that used to work on ICBMs and nuclear warheads today on a sub. That's pretty cool. I have a friend, John, who was in the Navy, and he served aboard a sub, and it sounds pretty intense. I don't think I'd actually have the psychological wherewithal to make it for very long on a sub. I think I would get pretty stir crazy not having any no real privacy. Nobody gets like a room to themselves ever, you know. So I think I would have a hard time being on a sub. I once gave some thought, like when I was younger, to seeing like if I could get me. Well, I didn't try to apply. I was just like looking into it as an option, like of just working on at like a research station in Antarctica, just so that you could just sort of say that you've worked there. But it looked pretty intense, and the pay was not like that mind blowing or anything. And I read up a lot on it, and people really do lose their minds and crack up. It might be temporary, but like everybody goes a little stir crazy in Antarctica. It sounds like it's pretty common for people to just suddenly decide to like, I'm gonna walk home and start wandering off into the snow, and just hopefully somebody catches you right away, as though you can walk back home. So yeah, I was curious about that, but couldn't do it. Couldn't pull the trigger. Just take over the sub and say, I'm the captain now. That's why I feel like some of the best Star Trek action sequences treat the spaceships kind of like submarines, actually. And you know, they obviously look way more comfortable and luxurious and spacious than any submarine. But that's sort of in a way a fairly accurate metaphor, and you realize that like their Starfleet rankings are pretty much based on a naval military idea. So yeah, I've always felt like that works pretty well for the action scenes, to treat it like they're submarines. That's why I think that Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, probably had their best overall spaceship action scene, because it was the two spaceships are sort of chasing each other through a nebula, so they can't use their scanners properly, and they're just sort of listening for each other. They're just sort of hunting for each other in the way that just seems like two submarines would be hunting for each other. And I think it works really well. And then what Captain Kirk does to win is he uses his experience and his ability to think three-dimensionally, which, like, Khan is certainly plenty smart enough to do that, but he doesn't have the experience, so he doesn't think completely three-dimensionally. It's a really cool sequence. It's really, really good. It's probably the best Star Trek movie, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. You could make arguments for like the fourth or sixth one, but I think it's overall got to be the best. Change my mind, bro. Change my mind. Hey, bro. Bro. Change my mind, bro. Ah, dude. You ain't never gonna change my mind on that one. Sorry, I just slipping into it for giggles. I only like Star Trek when there are Borgs involved. I'm more of a Dune guy. Dune fascinates me. I mean, but it's more because I'm a fan, I think, of David Lynch. Dune is so dreamlike. Well, I'm talking about the movie from, what was it, 1981? Something like that. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a good movie, but it is definitely an interesting movie. There are parts of it that are very good, no question. I'd have a hard time defending it as an overall successful movie in and of itself, but I do find it dreamlike and fascinating. But that said, I just realized there have probably been like at least 2 miniseries TV adaptations, right? I mean, there's at least one, but I think there have been 2. Jodorowsky Dune is even better. Yeah, that's what Voodoo Zombie says. The Dune novel is great. I didn't really care for the film. Yeah. There's a lot of thought on that, but and I missed some questions about Star Trek. Emanuele says, I think Star Trek has the friendliest fandom. I'm not really into it, but every single Star Trek fan I've met has been like the friendliest person. I do think in general that is the case. I think it's a pretty positive idea of treating everyone with respect and embracing different points of view. I mean, I don't know how you could enjoy Star Trek and not get those ideas out of it, you know? So I do think that, like, its fandom tends to be overall pretty friendly. I think that's a really good point. Star Trek Nemesis has dune buggies. Oh, yeah. The Next Generation didn't really get any amazing movies, like, and I like the Next Generation cast a lot, but boy, their movies weren't really anything to write home about. I think I can watch First Contact again, the rest only out of curiosity. Have I seen the new Pet Sematary trailer? Yep, I saw it. Could be good. Looks fairly accurate to like sort of Stephen King style. At the same time, I feel like I have seen this story, so I'm not sure that it's gonna give me anything that I haven't had before. But we'll see. I like a well-done horror movie, so hopefully. You know, I wasn't initially, like, necessarily super excited about it, but it was really good. The one I wanted to be good is I really am a big fan of The Dark Tower, the books. I'm a big fan of them. They work for me. Even the final one. Or the last chapter, I should say. So it's not the final book that came out. But that movie wasn't good. I didn't care for the movie at all. I wanted to like it. I really did. But if I'm being honest, I didn't. It was just trying to tell too much too fast, skip a lot of the stuff that makes you care about the characters and the world. Just shot right past way too much. But speaking of Idris Elba, I think I heard that he's gonna do like another season of Luther. I don't know if anybody else heard that, but I feel like I heard that not too long ago. I hope that's the truth. It's a good show, Luther. An interesting character that he plays there, the detective. Very driven, right on the edge, right on the edge. Good actor. Dune has the golden god Kyle MacLachlan. And he's also the Kwisatz Haderach. I don't know if I said that right. Something like that. The Dune miniseries has young Patrick Stewart, James McAvoy. Oh, did it? That's interesting. I didn't know that. What do I think of Deep Space Nine, asks Ragger Harry. That's my personal favorite Star Trek, which I only watched all the way through a few years ago, and I was like, oh, well, this just became my favorite Star Trek show. That doesn't mean I dislike any other Star Trek. It's just that that's the one that overall worked best for me. I really liked Cisco and the Dominion War. I liked the whole supporting cast. Yeah, I like that. I like that show a lot. You know who was always a big Star Trek fan was Robert Kirkman. I remember the first time I went to his house, I was just amazed because he had all the shows in like the DVD sets, and it was kind of early on. This was like 2002, 2003, something like that. And he had everything on DVD. I was like, oh, you're way more into Star Trek than I realized. Like, yeah, man, Star Trek's the coolest. I agree. Well, all right. There you go. There's yet another one of my impressions. That's my Robert Kirkman. Well, all right, man. That sounds good. Oh, no. You don't want to do it like that. He doesn't quite have that much of an accent, does he? But in my version, he does. Did I check out Black Mirror's USS Callister? Yeah, I've seen all the Black Mirror episodes, and USS Callister was pretty badass. That was a really cool episode of TV. That was really good. Good actors, good premise, good execution. Just wow. Creepy. Creepy episode, but good. You're scaring me, Chris. Why did I scare you? Voyager was kind of the one that nobody likes, right? Yeah, it's either Voyager or Enterprise. One of those two is going to be somebody's least favorite. I liked Enterprise. That was the first Star Trek show I watched all the way through. So I watched it when it was new. I did absolutely despise its finale. It's the worst TV finale I've ever seen. But I did like the show overall. But that finale takes a lot of love out of it for me, actually. I've never felt like going back to rewatch it. It's a really depressing ending, which isn't very appropriate for Star Trek. Star Trek can have its low moments, but they should be hopeful sad, not like, oh, I feel awful, I feel depressed sad. Hard to explain. Those impressions, man. Yeah, thank you. I hated Enterprise right from the theme song. I was able to get past that. It wasn't necessarily the best choice, but I just, yeah. Didn't bother me as much as it bothered some people. I get it. I do. More recently, there was Star Trek Discovery, and I think overall the reviews on that were very strong, and most people liked it. A few people just did not like it, because it was a pretty different approach to certain things in Star Trek. You know, it's basically a serialized show. It's not a episode of the week type idea. But I liked it a lot. I liked what they did with the show's characters. I like that it was not structured like we'd seen before, where, you know, the captain is the star. Instead, it was just, you know, sort of a specialist, and everything was through her perspective. I thought that that was really cool. Yeah, I just really, really enjoyed Star Trek Discovery. I'm definitely looking forward to more seasons with that cast. Let's see, other questions. James Gleason says, wasn't it revealed in the last episode of Enterprise that the whole show was just a program on the holodeck? No. The whole show wasn't a show on the holodeck. The final episode was showing us something that actually did happen to the Enterprise cast, but it was being watched by Riker. And yeah, so first of all, I mean, it's like, you know, over 10 years after Next Gen had gone off the air. I don't remember how many years, but Riker is noticeably like heavier and stuff, but it was supposed to be set at a very specific time in Next Generation's past. So it was like 15, 20 years past that. Like, he didn't really look too convincingly like he used to. Fine, whatever. But it's like, why do I care? It's all through Riker's perspective. It was all like him watching something that happened to the Enterprise cast so that he could get the courage to make a decision that we learned he made like over 10 years ago. We already know like the decision he made. This was just like showing us like what supposedly helped motivate him. And it was basically an excuse so that like the show could jump about 5 years or so past where we last saw Enterprise. Like the season finale could just jump forward 5 years to just sort of say, and then the cast set up the Federation or something like that, you know. So it was just an excuse to like jump forward like 5 years. But who cares? Who cares? It was bad. It was bad. Yeah, my least favorite season finale of all time. See you, Quinn London. Let's see. There was a Star Trek and X-Men crossover, if I remember well. Yep, you do. I know it was illustrated by Mark Silvestri. I can't quite remember who wrote it. Somebody's asking J. Andrew World about Artists Against Police Brutality. Yeah, it's a cool anthology graphic novel. One of my buddies, one of my best friends, Jason Rodriguez, was an editor on it, and it's a lot of different like colored creators that had stories that they wanted to tell, and I think it's an important book, and it's totally like an engaging, interesting read. Not sure how that came up. I missed that point, the portion, but I did want to just mention that. I do recommend it's good. Like any anthology type series, it's going to have a bunch of different art styles, and your mileage may vary in terms of how much you enjoy each one. But I think the stories themselves are pretty darn good. Let's see. Emmanuel says, I don't mean to offend anyone here, but I haven't heard anything about Star Trek in a while. Apparently, they made one with Michelle Yeoh. I heard nothing about it until recently. Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. It's called Star Trek Discovery, and it was made for the CBS All Access, basically CBS's online streaming service. It's an exclusive there, unless you live outside the US, in which case it came to a lot of Netflix platforms outside the US. Um, I liked it. I liked it a lot. That's what I was just talking about. Michelle Yeoh does have an interesting role on it, and yeah, I was totally into Star Trek Discovery. I think it's pretty fantastic. Interesting sci-fi premises, a couple amazing twists and turns through the series. I don't want to give any of that away, but it's definitely not really like stuff you'd be expecting. I mean, maybe by just saying that there's a twist, maybe you'll start trying to guess at them or something. And you can always look it up, but I definitely encourage you not to, because it's quite satisfying to witness it in context. Hmm. It was only online. It looked really good from. Well, I guess you could say online. I mean, it's a streaming thing. You can watch it on your TV. It's a streaming service like Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime. It's like that. Um, Michelle Yeoh once played a superhero in a Hong Kong film called Silverhawk. I don't remember Silverhawk. I definitely remember things like the Heroic Trio. I remember her in Super Cop and Super Cop 2 for like her own movie, or Super Cop S, whatever you want to call it. It went by a bunch of different titles. What else did she do that was sort of like a superhero? She did a lot of really cool action movies in Hong Kong in the early 90s. Yeah, I like Michelle Yeoh a lot. She's a good actress. Star Trek definitely benefits from having her. Time's it? How long have I been going? I know you can't really see what I'm drawing, and I'm also worried that I'm going to start smearing stuff. Michael Jai White was in the same film. Really? I don't know that one. My first Star Trek convention, got to meet Takei and found out that Klingon porn is a thing. Oh, well, I didn't know that. I could have gone without knowing that. Oh well. I've always wanted to hear your thoughts on some comic book movies. I hope you can do movie reviews as well. That's an interesting point. It's very important to me that I keep my main show going. My weekly look at comic book history, techniques by writers, artists. Interesting like looks at like sort of character evolution or unique types of titles. It's very important to me that I sort of stick to my bread and butter. But I would love to branch off and do some other stuff. Like, for instance, right now, I like doing some live streams where I can draw. That's a little bit different. If my channel ever took off in such a way that I was able to do it full time, you know, if it could somehow pay my bills, I would absolutely give strong consideration to doing comic book movie reviews and maybe tangentially related, you know, reviews of other stuff like that. My cat is scratching at the door if you can hear him. He really wants to come in and just hang out. So, you know what? I think I'm going to let him. Give me 1 second. Hidden Dragon, Crouching Tiger is a great movie. Oh, yeah. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but yeah. Yeah, but the Sword of Green Destiny or whatever, there was a Netflix sequel. There was a sequel to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I mean, technically, I think that was book 5 of 7 of a book series, something like that. It was a middle chapter, so there was always plenty of room to make sequels. But the one that they made for Netflix, I haven't really been able to get all the way through because it's paced quite slowly. Good actors in it. The kung fu fight scenes seem to be well done, but the story is just very lethargically paced. It's quite hard to get through. Yeah, anyway. Did I ever see the Doctor Strange TV movie from the 70s? I have. I've seen the whole thing. It is, it is a thing. It is not really a good thing. Yeah. About all I can say is his costume at the end is relatively accurate by the very end. Relatively. There's a couple interesting special effects with, like, you know, whatever devil or demon he goes up against. There's a couple okay ones just for the TV budget of its time. And Jessica Walters is Morgan Le Fay, and she's pretty good in it, actually. I would say that, like, she's pretty good. Actually, the main guy, Peter Hooton, is decent as the main character. You know, it's weird, though. I don't know why they decided to make him a psychologist and not have him get in that accident. Instead, they just say that, like, you know, he becomes a sorcerer because his father used to be one, and it was a secret, and he has now inherited the ability to become a great warlock or something like that. It's pretty different. The set is actually pretty good for his Sanctum Sanctorum. But all this said, I definitely do not recommend watching it. It is slow. It is quite dull. It is quite dull. And there's big parts of it that don't really make a lot of sense. Doctor Strange is a very tricky character to get right. And to sort of have be interesting. So I give the recent movie quite a bit of credit for making him seem interesting and potentially vulnerable, because Doctor Strange can be written to be just about omnipotent. It's crazy how powerful he can be. So kudos to the movie for doing something there that made us believe there was even the smallest chance that Doctor Strange could lose. Whoa, Mikey Jesus sends a super chat and says, thank you for these streams. Your positivity makes it feel okay to just like comics. Any thoughts on favorite Grant Morrison work? There's a lot of good stuff by Grant Morrison out there. There's some stuff that's too weird for me that I'm not as into. Probably my favorite Grant Morrison thing is All-Star Superman, his 12-issue run there. But also up there is We 3 and his X-Men run. Those are way up there for me. Some of his weirder stuff, like Sea Guy, I don't quite connect with as much. I still actually need to read a bunch of his Doom Patrol. I haven't read all of his Doom Patrol. I do want to and intend to do that, because I always hear good things, actually. Yeah, anyway, those are some of my thoughts. I'll definitely do an episode on him someday. Probably should finish reading his Doom Patrol before I do that, so that I can give as an informed opinion as possible. Because that is one of the first big things he became known for. Yeah, so I'll do that. I wouldn't say his Batman run was my favorite thing by him, and that's not saying that it's bad, just not my favorite thing by him. That's sort of a big thing that he did, but didn't really overly connect with me, but there were good ideas in it, for sure. There were good ideas in it. Care Bear says, I like his Doom Patrol run, but I liked Rachel Pollack's more. Fair. Doctor Strange would have been better if there had been a better sense of how long he was studying. It seemed like he became a master in like a week in the movie. See, I didn't think he really was a master, even going up against like Dormammu in the end. I think he'd learned a lot, and he was just portrayed as a very clever man, a very, very good memory, very good student, but I didn't feel that he was quite a master. He just had mastered a handful of techniques. Now, after the movie ends, it does seem like it jumps forward a bunch and he's become a master, but I didn't think he was exactly portrayed as a master within the overall plot of the movie. I don't know. That was my take. I could definitely be wrong. Since I'm drawing a horror movie thing, what's your personal favorite horror movie, or what scared you the most anyway? I'm always curious what scares others. See, does anyone say? Okay. Did I read Grant Morrison's Filth? No, actually, that's one that I have not read. Should I? Should I read Filth? Mother, should I read Filth? What? Filth? Oh, you mean comic books. And that's my perfect English accent. I just know that you guys like perfect impressions, not just okay or interesting impressions, but perfect ones. So every once in a while, I'm here to give you a perfect impression. I've lost track of the days. Is tomorrow Friday? I think it is. I'm literally losing track of the days. Wow. That's not good. Alright, let's see here. Don't read Filth. I wasn't on enough drugs when I read it. I did like the monkey. Okay. Chad Fraser says, the Super Mario Brothers movie from the 90s is one of the scariest movies I have seen. Sigamigs likes Wreck. How Can I Help You says, I think the problem is most horror films just aren't good films, cinematically speaking. Yeah, I suppose you're right when you say most, but there still is a bunch of good stuff. David Patrick says, Hellboy isn't scary, but great for October. That's fair. Who was the masked man in the little home on the prairie who assaulted that girl? No idea. In some parts of the world, it's already Friday. Hey, Masiak. The episode isn't out. I'll need your address at some point, if you didn't email it to me already. Alright, let's see. Watched the original Night of the Living Dead at a midnight show, laughed at the cheesiness, but was looking over my shoulder the whole walk home. Yeah, I guess that's not exactly like a sort of nail biter with like surprises, but it is certainly a creepy idea that has stuff to say. So I like George Romero's first 4 zombie movies. And then I think he might have done 3 more. He did at least 2 more. Well, let's see. I've been going over an hour, and I don't know that I'm necessarily going to be able to finish everything that I've sort of outlined here. Screwed up with the line there, but who knows, maybe I can fix that later, but I probably won't. Yeah, just getting tired for real now, so I'm probably gonna just start making some sloppy mistakes if I'm not careful. Let's see, Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead. Are those the 2 that, I thought he might have made a 3rd, but I totally believe you that you just checked on it. Thank you. Not that I like horror, but the idea of a dinosaur horror movie would be cool. Well, aren't you in luck, because Carnosaur is there to suit your dinosaur scary needs. No, don't see Carnosaur. As Roger Corman, super cheap schlock with a very unconvincing puppet. Made to cash in on the success of Jurassic Park. Which is a sort of a scary idea, but wasn't fully built out as scary as like Jaws or something. But it could have been. Could have been presented that way. Never really has been. It's always been pretty family-friendly adventure stuff, huh? Even though there are people getting eaten by dinosaurs left and right. Roger Corman is a master. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs deserves more love, in my opinion. That's fair. Good artist for sure. What's his name? Something Schultz. Mark Schultz? I think it's Mark Schultz, right? Yeah, I don't think he's ever necessarily gotten massive acclaim. I think I have reviewed something by him. If I'm not mistaken, he may have written Batman and Superman versus Alien and Predator. I think that I'm remembering that right. It's been a while since I looked at it, obviously. But that's not his finest hour, if so. Alright, let's see what other What other amazing questions are Dusk Till Dawn? Sure, that's a decent one. Shutter. Yep. Anything else in there? Have you watched Doomed, the documentary about the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie? Ooh, I haven't seen that, but I'd love to see that. That sounds awesome. I didn't realize there was a documentary about that. Boy, that is a stinker of a movie. And you know, the frustrating part is I remember for years, like, I feel like Wizard Magazine, but at least certain fan publications would be like, you know, the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie, really not too bad. You know, yeah, some dodgy special effects, but The Thing and Doctor Doom look good, and they get all the characters right. And I'm just going like, the pictures that you're showing don't seem to match with the opinions you're espousing. Have to take a rain check on your opinion on that one. And then I finally saw it, and I was like, this isn't good at all. Come on. What were you willing to settle for if you thought this was good? There's a scene at the end where Human Torch flies, and he basically becomes a cartoon from, like, you know, 40 years before. Like, it's so bad. It's so bad. Oh, that is a bad movie. But, you know, I do feel bad that, like, you know, the actors and the people behind the scene, the crew, thought that they were making a movie that was real. And so I would very much like to see a documentary about that. I think that sounds really interesting. They all thought they were making the real thing, is my understanding, and behind the scenes, Roger Corman knew what was up. He was making it just so that, like, you know, another company could essentially keep their rights to the Fantastic Four because they had produced a movie, or they'd licensed a movie to be produced. So that extended their option. So yeah, that sounds like an actual interesting topic for a documentary. I'd also like to see that documentary that they made about the failed making of the Tim Burton Superman movie with Nicolas Cage. And I wonder, has anyone ever tried to make a documentary about the failed Justice League movie that, what's his name? Mad Max's director. What's his name? George Miller? I think it's George Miller. It's not really coming to me right now, but I think it's George Miller is his name. He got together a really good cast for that movie. It's amazing that didn't get made. I think that could have been really good. I think DC made a mistake by not making that movie. Now, I know that Corman didn't direct the Fantastic Four movie, but it went through his production company or something. Speaking of documentaries, I have a voice acting part in an upcoming documentary, capitalized. Justice League Mortal. It was because of Chris Nolan. He didn't want two different live-action Batman at once. I mean, I guess that's fair. I just still think it could have been good, that's all. Yeah, James Gleason, that's what we're talking about. I'm glad they listened to Nolan. Really? I feel like that Justice League Mortal looked like it had a good cast. Ah, g'day, Nippa. G'day. How'd you like that? Did I nail it? Here's how I'd say it to you. Hey, how's it going there, Nippa? You have a wicked piss of morning? You get some donkeys? Yeah, I was going down the interstate, and I stopped at Dunkies, picked up a couple dozen crullers, and yeah, and some Java, and let's go down to work. We'll go down and park in Harvard. That's me doing my real Boston accent. Justice League Mortal was cast and they had costumes and everything. Yep. I mean, it had Armie Hammer. I think he would have been a pretty good anchor for the movie. He's a good actor. Yeah, Sigamix is talking about Fenway Park. That's where we go to see the Sox win. By the way, I'm thinking the Sox could go all the way. We'll see. I'm a little excited. Anyway. It's actually a little warm in this room now. Late night, warm room. Late night, warm room. Welcome to my live stream. It's the Warm Room live stream with me, Chris, the master of accents, and your co-host, Joey Two Nuts. He's got two nuts and also two other nuts. That's why they call him Joey Two Nuts. He's got two sets of nuts. And he's my sidekick, and I'm Chris, and this is my show. Welcome to my show. I'm glad you could make it. On my show, I draw and talk. Buckle up. All right. Enough silly voices. Nobody likes silly voices. Enough silliness. Let's concentrate on this terrifying story. All right. You guys want me to tell you a good scary story? I think it's October. Everybody deserves one good scare. So, you've been watching me draw for an hour, right? Well, did you know that the real Chris died on this very night 15 years ago? That's right. You've all been watching my ghost. Problem with that. You've been watching me every night. So, does a ghost get his equipment going? Alright, there might be a flaw in my story there. There might be a flaw. I'll get back to you on that one. Am I going to draw Joey Two Nuts? Yes. I'm going to draw Joey Two Nuts. This is my sidekick for my show. His name is Joey Two Nuts. He's a really wonderful gentleman. I think you're going to really like him. This pen's dying, so let me continue with a different pen. I'll show you Joey Two Nuts. And he's got two legs. And one of his arms is obviously a tentacle. We all know that. And his other arm is also a tentacle. Everybody knows that. It's Joey Two Nuts with his two tentacled arms. And he loves wearing a shirt that says Rick and Morty. That's something he's really into. He's got really amazing flowing locks of mulleted hair. And of course, he's most famous for his unzipped pants, which have inside some shorts that he doesn't take off ever. And that's Joey Two Nuts. So I hope you enjoyed that look at Joey Two Nuts. My sidekick, my best friend, and the only man I know that has one limb that's an octopus tentacle and another limb that's also an octopus tentacle. And he always has his pants unzipped, but underneath he has another pair of pants that he never really takes off. I'm telling Infotron on you, don't you dare, Foof. Don't you dare. I've had enough of that blasted bucket of bolts. That blasted bucket of bolts. That malfunctioning bit of wire and I don't know what. I don't know where I'm going with that one. But I do know that as soon as I feel that I've finished this drawing, that I'm just going to go straight to sleep. I do know that. There's not a lot of things I know. I don't know nuclear physics. I don't know what the current national debt is. But one thing I do know is what time I go to bed, because that's something I decide for myself. Hi, I'm Chris, and my name is Chris Knows When He Goes to Sleep. That's my last name. My first name was Chris. I believe I established that very well early on, and I know when I go to bed because I decide that. And also, it's my name. My parents knew that it would be my name and that it would be a thing that I'd be very into. So it's both my name and something I know. I'm Chris Knows When He Goes to Bed. And tonight, I know that I'm going to bed as soon as I finish drawing this amazing piece of artwork. That's one other thing I do know. I forgot to mention that. I do know how to draw. I'm doing it right now. I'm not saying I'm the best, but I am saying it's something I know. So you could say that my middle name is Knows How to Draw. This sounds like a Justin Roiland character from the Intergalactic Cable episodes. Oh, maybe it does. Maybe it does. Maybe I was having a little too much fun there and wasn't being original enough. See, Mike L says, this blows. We used to have deep convos. This was a tight group. Well, sorry that you're upset, Mike. You are catching me when I'm very, very tired. So that makes me pretty silly. I'm very happy to have deep conversations, and I would guess the next one would be... Let me think this through. What's today? Today's Thursday? So the next one will probably be Saturday. I believe I'll be home at a good hour on Saturday after work. I'll be doing the stream probably closer to like 7:30, something around there. And we can have a good time then. I'm sorry that you think the show blows. The show blows. Well, it's all extra. It's all extra. And I'm a bit extra when you think about it. The show's extra, I'm extra. It's all a bunch of extra stuff. You know what I like that's extra? Cereal. Yep, I'm a big fan of cereal. I could eat cereal for more meals. That would be nice. Okay, Mike says, I've been here at the end of a lot of them. I haven't caught them like I used to. It's fine. It has a different feel. Are you talking a different feel than like what I did last year or something? That's definitely possible. All I can say is I react to the group in front of me, but I feel that like people have been asking some pretty interesting questions most of the time, and it's late at night when I tend to act sillier, and that's on me, not on the group. Yeah, it's just a product of how much energy I have, if and that makes sense. Did you ever use an animated, or did I ever see an animated version of Riddick? It wasn't bad at all. I'm aware that it existed. Let's see. The only like extra Riddick thing I did was I remember that video game, and I'm gonna guess that it was called something like The Chronicles of Butcher Bay, and it was actually quite good. Like not just as a game, but like as a Riddick story. Like maybe even better than most of the movies. Well, that's not too hard. What have there been 3 movies, right? 1, 2, 3. I think it's still 3. First one's decent. Second one's not very good at all. Third one, fairly decent. I like your silliness, Chris. I think you're swell. Well, you're biased, Chrissy. But thank you. Let's see. You actually helped me out a lot last year. I'm asking every night how you've been, but you never see the comment. Oh, Mike, I'm sorry that I've missed the comment. I've probably missed a lot of people's comments, and that's too bad. I wish I could catch everything. It's just not always realistic. How have I been? I do try to mention it here and there on the show itself. You know, how have I been? I mean, do you want a real answer or do you just want a positive answer? Take your pick. Let's see. Raul Julia. Oh, thank you for coming back from the dead to join us, Raul. Says the cereal has hooks and chains in it. Those are the prizes. Oh, okay, sure. For cereal from this fellow. Sure. I think everybody could get behind that. Real answer. I don't know. Most days I just wish I could stop existing, to be honest. There's a lot of good things in my life, and I wish I could appreciate them more. I'm very tired all the time. I'm very tired all the time. Some of it's depression, some of it's exhaustion from work, some of it's the fact that I got mono years ago and I have the Epstein-Barr virus in my system. But I'm very tired all the time, and I don't have time to do relaxing fun things. I have time. This is fun. Talking to you and you all and drawing is fun. But it isn't quite the same as something where you can relax, like, you know, watch a movie or play a video game. I have very little time for that these days. And I wish I had some more, and I don't. And I'm always stressed about my bills, and I don't get the same amount of pleasure out of my current job that I have from positions I've had in the past. And I feel guilty that I feel so miserable all the time because I want to make those around me happy, and I don't want to make my family and my friends stressed out. But if you're asking, I feel miserable most of the time. And I wish it could all just go away. So I just tell my silly little jokes and do my voices. I am pretty unhappy. But so be it. Maybe things will get better. Who knows? I've definitely got it better than lots of people out there. I've got it lots better. I've got a wonderful, wonderful fiance. She makes me happy. I wish I could be happier so that I could pay her back with my happiness. I wish I just wasn't always so miserable. There, some honesty. You should do more telling us how to draw. Okay. Am I working? Yeah, I'm working. I sell used cars. It's fine. I like my coworkers. I like some of my customers. I like my bosses. I don't get paid very much. And it's not what I sort of studied to do. It's not what I want to be doing with my life, but I do okay at it. And it keeps me alive because I gotta pay the bills, gotta buy food, and gotta pay for rent, etc. I've been too busy to think about hurting myself, which is a good thing. But I've also been too busy to really socialize with my friends, which is kind of a miserable thing. Everything I'm doing right now is either work or my self-imposed work of drawing or making comic tropes, which obviously isn't the same type of work as carrying around heavy objects or anything like that, but it can be tiring. So, how am I doing? Not great. Do you remember the comic idea I had last year? I need a prompt or something, not off the top of my head. Thank you for the kind words, Emanuele. That's really, really nice. Obviously, I doubt it. It's been a year, Mike, so off the top of my head, I don't. I'm sure if you prompt me, it will come back to me. But, you know, I've got a terrible memory for things like names and stuff like that, so I've got a terrible memory for many, many things. Is it something that you're working on right now? For that matter, is anybody out there working actively on a comic book idea that they may have? I'd be curious to hear about that. It's not easy to turn your vision into reality, even with the support of, like, you know, good collaborators, or if you've had time to actually like map out your idea. It's a tough road to hoe to get your idea into physical existence. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah. Mike's idea had been a hero becomes a villain and a villain becomes a hero. I think that's a strong idea in general. That's a really good theme. That's a good theme to explore. Um, it all comes down to, you know, motivation and stuff. I think that the questions, you know, I would have as a reader would be like, who am I actually? Who is the true protagonist? Like, who am I meant to have my viewpoint aligned with? Or is that going to flip at some point? And am I going to actually be able to like a villain down the road as he or she becomes better? I think that those are some tough questions to answer. It can definitely be done. There's no question about that. I mean, I think that if you watch, this is something that comes to mind is Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. It's been a long time. I know that's sort of a deep pull at this point. But you sort of like Dr. Horrible initially because he's kind of goofy and you know, he's our viewpoint into the whole world. But eventually, by the end of the story, he's done some pretty horrible things, intentionally or not. And he started it all in motion, and he claims responsibility for it. So that's pretty bad. And by the end, you realize that this has been an origin story for a supervillain. Like, we haven't just been following a goofball that'll never make it or that will get better. But that's not quite the same as what you're talking about, because that's just one character. It's not like another character switches who they are. I'm just saying that that's an example of a character that we see go down a dark path, which is definitely something that's been explored since Shakespearean times. Shakespearean times? I mean with Shakespearean works. I'm tired. But the idea of also simultaneously having a villain become the hero is definitely the tougher of the two, because it's pretty easy to make someone turn into a jerk or start off as a jerk but that is doing good things and then, like, you know, make some mistakes and let out the worst in themselves. We can all let out the worst in ourselves. How do you start in a bad place and then improve yourself? I wonder. Holy moly! Howie Cat with a very generous $20 donation that says, hope you do live stream commissions someday. I would consider it. Excuse me. There's a fantastic example I will come back to in 2 seconds. If I was going to do a commission, I definitely want to do the full, like, sketch with the pencil from, like obviously for Inktober, I'm really just focusing on sort of the inking stage, and I'm not always even concerned with finishing it. It's more about just the practice and just sort of getting somewhere. But if I was going to do a full commission and do it as a live stream as well, I'd want to start from like an absolute blank piece of paper. So it would definitely be a slightly different type of show, actually. And that would be a little stressful, though, because if I'm doing it as a commission, I'd want to do my absolute best work. And to do my absolute best work, I usually need time to quietly concentrate, you know? Like, what I'm doing in these live streams, Howie Cat, is the best I can sort of do within certain constraints. I'm trying to work within a time limit. I'm taking questions from the audience, which is sort of a distraction. And so, yeah, it's I would need to, like, give that some serious thought as to how I would approach it differently for a commission, because I would want to approach it kind of differently. Anyway, something to think about. But how can I help you? Had a fantastic point. There is a good story where a hero becomes a villain and a villain becomes a hero, and it was that Sean Gordon movie Batman White Knight, which I loved. I think that was a really good book that does sort of explore some of those ideas. I thought Batman definitely is the bad guy in there. Now, Batman doesn't really go through a huge arc in that book. It's definitely more of the Joker's story. But it is sort of an example of that idea. Let's see. I can't believe you remembered that, though, Chris. Yeah, I definitely will remember. I just need a prompt. I just need, you know, there's a lot that I talk about, like last year's 31 live streams. This year's another 31. You know, it's over an hour talking to people, so I just need like a little help remembering things. Oh, little kitty behind me just sneezed. Who have we got here? Where are you hiding? All right. Cat doesn't want to be picked up. I don't know if this is really going anywhere at this point. Let me just do a little bit more up here, I suppose. But I'm mostly done, I think. I feel like I needed to be even bolder with my shadows on Pinhead's face. I feel like this isn't quite coming out where I wanted it to. And I'm a little stumped as to exactly what I need to do. Maybe it's because I'm afraid to do it in ink because I don't know for sure what I'm going to do to darken his face, and I could always just do it with a pencil now that I think of it. So, got a big spot of black here. So there's sort of like, I'm trying to think, like, you know, some darken this. I think, I'm wondering if I did sort of a consistent light source of like shadows from all these nails, if that would look interesting or dumb. Sort of just putting in a bunch of angled lines here. Which is playing a little loose with what the lighting source would be. I don't know. Maybe. There's a truck outside, but it's kind of late for a truck to be coming around. Maybe somebody's moving and just this is the first time they got here. Seems awfully late. Boy, I don't know. This is interesting. Could look good. Whoa, thank you, Richard. I would love for you to do an episode on Rom. I'll give it some serious thought. I have considered that in the past, Richard. It's definitely a character that I've got like a few friends that absolutely love. So it would be interesting, but I'd need an angle on it. I don't want to just summarize something. You know what I'm saying? I want to do something more than a summary. I might summarize parts of it, but I want it to be put within a context of like saying what the creators were attempting to do, even whether they were successful or not. So I'd have to give that some serious thought as to how I'd approach something like that. So I'm not saying no, but I am saying that I'd need some time to think about it. A lot of people are saying like that they like ROM, so that's cool. We talked last year about Gru. You did an episode about it, and I haven't watched it yet. Well, watch it, Mike. How dare you? How dare you? What the hell is that truck doing out there at this hour? Do any of you know? Wait. Is it a ghost truck? Well, sorry about the misery I launched into in the middle, folks. You don't need to hear about that stuff. So I'm sorry. Let's see. I'm just gonna go for it, because you know what? Like, what else am I gonna do with this drawing? So, if I can't experiment on something like this, like, when can I experiment? That's my logic. So I'm throwing in some shadows from the nails, as though there's sort of another intense light source that's throwing most of these in a more or less regular direction. We'll just see what it looks like in the end. If it doesn't look good, then I ruined this piece, and I can live with that. You know, it's not like this is going to be published, so this is the time to take those chances and see where it goes, see if it pays off. Is it paying off? Probably not. I'm probably ruining this drawing right now, but I'm going to at least finish it for consistency's sake, and then I'll take a step back and see what I think. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't love it, but it was worth a try. Whoa, another super chat, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you, Mandela Butterfly. Hardest comic tropes episodes that you had to do. Several of them have been difficult for different reasons. Doing the Steve Ditko episode was a little tough because I was trying to do a fair amount of last-minute research into a topic that I was pretty familiar with, but like trying to get the certain specifics right in a short window, because I was like, I'd already sort of been planning a Steve Ditko episode, and then unfortunately he passed away, and I was like, well, let's pull the trigger. This is the best time to launch it, to give him sort of a little bit of a tribute, we'll say. But that meant like sort of having to speed up the last few steps of my writing schedule on that. So that was a little tough. I don't always remember which episodes these are, but doing episodes in the middle of summer is brutal. It's brutal because it gets really hot in my house. I don't have central air. So I always have like an air-conditioned master bedroom that I can retreat to, like, when I need to relax or go to sleep at night. But my room that I record comic tropes in gets very hot in the summer. And I then have to turn on lights onto myself, and then I have to turn off any sort of fans that I have because the sound would ruin it. So every summer there's usually 2 or 3 episodes where I'm just sweating. Like I do everything I can to sort of like prevent anyone from like really seeing it, but the ones that I do in the middle of summer are just brutally physically hard because of that that heat. And just sort of putting yourself in an environment that you normally wouldn't. You'd normally at least have a fan on, you'd be drinking some ice water, something like that. You'd be doing something to cool yourself down, and instead I'm putting on sort of like a thick shirt or a costume or something and turning off the fan and just doing my best to get the episode out. And so those are tough, the ones in the summer. Is there anything tough? Like, I wouldn't say that I've done anything... Okay, I think of one more that was tough for me. And it's not necessarily my best episode, to be honest. But the G.I. Joe episode I made this past summer, I wish I could have done an even better job on that. I was talking about the artwork of a G.I. Joe comic that was, a little less common, and I don't think I fully put that into context, and I don't think I fully gave the artist his due, and it frustrates me. It was very difficult for me to do that episode because it was a comic book by a friend of mine who died very suddenly at a young age several years ago, and it's actually quite difficult to think about. It's very sad, and it upsets me a lot. And I didn't want the episode to be sad. I wanted to celebrate one of his accomplishments. So that was a very difficult episode to do because, I don't think I nailed it, to be honest. I had a hard time concentrating on the topic. When I'd think about it, I'd sort of get sad, and so I think I I didn't dig deep enough to sort of like relay my criticism of both good and bad about that. I wish, I think I did okay, and that there are definitely like fun parts that make the episode watchable. I'm very proud of the short commercial that I did for that episode. I'm very proud of that. I spent a long time getting ready for that episode in advance because I knew I wanted it to be something a little special if I was going to be talking about something that was this important to me. So I had that idea very early on and spent months working on that little bit of animation and the other sort of shots that I got in that. Now, I am very pleased with how that quick thing turned out. Like that I have no real problems with. But I wish my commentary dug a little bit deeper. I think it's an okay episode, but I don't think I necessarily imparted any super lasting, amazing wisdom. And I wish I had. I still don't know exactly what I would have said, because it's even right now, like just talking about it, it's difficult to allow myself to think about it all the way. It's very sad to me that my friend died so young. And he was really on his way to becoming a successful comic book artist. So many people in the industry really loved him. He'd made some wonderful connections in terms of just making friends with other professionals, some really big names and up and coming names, and it just really makes me sad to think about. Good night, Javon. 7-Eleven might be my favorite episode, though. Thanks, Jojo. I love episode 7-Eleven. That was my favorite obscure comic that I have found so far. That thing was a delight to come across. That was one of the worst ideas I've ever seen for a story, executed with no real flair. And the fact that his secret like crime fighter name is his actual like criminal number in prison, and no one can figure out who he could be. I don't know, I just love that. I love it. That's one of my absolute favorite discoveries that I did on the show, was 7-Eleven. And it led to me befriending Harry Partridge, who is an amazing animator, and apparently he just really liked that episode. He reached out, and I don't know, it's really cool to get to know somebody that you already admired, and he's a really nice fellow. So anyway, I think that'll basically do it for this live stream. I don't think that there's too much more I could do to this drawing to improve it. I would really just be sort of fleshing out like all this black leather. It would be a lot of black. Peter says, can we ask who he was? Well, it's like I said, I made a whole episode about it, so that's not a secret. It's Jeremy Dale was his name, and Jeremy did several G.I. Joe comics for Hasbro, and some NFL Rush Zone comics, I believe, and he did his own self-published book called Skyward. Excuse me, I kept thinking Skybound for a moment just because I'm tired. I was like, that's a different friend. So anyway, that's yeah, Jeremy Dale. He was a very talented writer and artist, one of the friendliest guys you could ever meet, and I miss him. And he makes me think like how I could be doing more with my life. You know, I'm still alive. I'm a lot older than he ever got to become, and so there are days where I just look at my life and I'm like, what am I doing in terms of accomplishing my dreams? Am I working at it? To a degree, but not as much as he did. He got to be well on his path. I admire that. I admire that a lot. What a wonderful guy. All right, I think this will do it for today. Somebody said that tomorrow's prompt is whale, and I'll be honest, that's a complete stumper. I don't know what I'm gonna do for that. That gives me no ideas off the top of my head. So, obviously I'm exhausted. Thank you so much to several of you who are here quite late at night. It's really, really kind of you. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate the support, just having people here while I work. And I'll be back tomorrow. It's gonna be another late night. It's gonna be another late night because I'm working closing shift. So that's till at least 9 p.m. I'll still be at the store. Could be later, depends. But I'll be here either way. I'll be here, and yeah, we're already entering into Friday. So technically, right now, I could just bust out a piece of paper and start and just do something for whale. But I have to sleep. I have to sleep. It's the only way to stay sane. So I'm gonna go to bed. I still have a ton of editing to do to get the next episode out on time. So if I go to sleep now, I can do some editing tomorrow before I have to go to work, and I can be sure that I give you all a fresh episode of Comic Tropes in time for Sunday. Thank you all. You've been fantastic. I'll see many of you tomorrow night. If I don't tomorrow night, hopefully some other time this week. And until then, I want you to keep reading comics. Take care.